All right, guys, before we get going here, I just want to let you know that today we're joined by Chloe from GraveFace. If you guys follow along on our channel, you know last Friday I dropped a little spooky Halloween type of video where I went around to some haunted places in Illinois. Chloe was part of that video. She owns a museum that is honestly pretty wild. I believe she has the largest collection of John Wayne Gacy paintings that are known to exist in the country, amongst of other crazy things. So I just wanted to shout out that video. Go watch that. It's on YouTube. And yeah, we'll get into the interview. But before we do, want to talk about game time. The NFL is back. Tailgates, packed stands, the buzz before kickoff. But getting in is a nightmare. Queues, price jumps, getting logged out mid-click. All you want to do is be there, beer in hand, losing your voice with the crowd. The Game Time app gives the advantage back to the fans. It's a hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Game Time guarantee means that you can get tickets that you trust, and they'll be 100% authentic and on time and at the best price. Plus, fees are always included, so what you see is what you pay. I was looking at tickets for Bears-Giants on Sunday. I'm seeing $231 as the get-in price. And, yeah, it's a good deal. So hop in and take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code DOGWALK for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code DOGWALK for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Game Time app today. Also, Stella Blue Coffee's new can lattes are here. Crafted with 100% Colombian coffee, each can delivers 190 milligrams of natural caffeine and is a good source of protein and comes in two smooth flavors. It's got the espresso cafe mocha, and the espresso sweet cream. They're both great. I like the cafe mocha a little better, but they're both awesome flavors. So whether you're braving your morning commute or chasing your pup, Stella Blue cans are for those always on the go and for those who care. They also, every purchase goes back to helping homeless dogs. So let's buy some Stella Blue. Let's help out the dogs and try the new cans today. Taste the difference and make a difference. All new Stella Blue Coffee can lattes now available at StellaBlueCoffee.com. All right, bang. Today is Thursday. It's November 6th. Welcome to the Dog Walk presented by Barstool Sports. Today I'm joined in studio by Chloe. Chloe is a co-owner of GraveFace Museum. It's a museum in Wicker Park, Bucktown,
Yep.
Here in Chicago. And listen, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen the Let Me Show You Chicago video I did last Friday with Chloe. Basically, GraveFace is a true crime and oddities museum, and you guys have a lot of crazy things. So thank you for being here, and I'm excited to chat more about what we kind of saw last week.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So first off, how did you know that you wanted to get into this kind of thing, or did you kind of stumble upon it?
Yeah, it's funny. I definitely stumbled into it. So my husband and I, we both have very similar interests as far as like human psychology and just dark history, I guess you would classify it as. But he expresses his interest through collecting and meeting people and so on. And I, hadn't really. I'm not a collector per se. I'm a hoarder, and so is he. So that also worked very well. But basically, as his collecting grew and grew, because we got together it was 10 years ago now. So I very much encouraged all of these interests, and and he was gonna be collecting this stuff regardless. But it got to the point of not just collecting items, but these stories associated with the items that. We were like, what are we doing? We could write books, I guess, but then we still have boxes of a million Gacy letters and death row artwork from other prisoners and Charles Manson's pants. Why do we have that? Nobody's seeing it really. And how do we tell these stories? So then we had the idea first. The GraveFace Museum technically started as a pop-up gallery, and we would travel around the country and actually do these traveling exhibits on death row artwork and these different artifacts, primarily true crime related. And then that got to the point of we should just make a permanent thing. So the first iteration of the museum is actually our first location, which is in Savannah, Georgia. And yeah, it was just kind of we found a cool, weird spot in an alley, kind of in the middle of the city that is very tucked away and hidden. And then yeah, we opened that and didn't know exactly what the reception would be or how it would go, but it ended up being very well received. So,
because Savannah is a very haunted city, is that correct?
It is very haunted, yeah. And it's known for its ghost tourism, you could say. And so even though we don't rely too heavily on that part of things. Like that's a factor for sure, because we have some weird stories that we tell and some experiences that we can't really explain that we do dive into a little bit in the museum down in Savannah. But there's definitely an overlapping interest of people that are interested in spooky ghost stuff and people that want to see other parts of dark history.
Did you guys meet through your interest in this stuff?
Actually, we met through, because GraveFace started as a record label. So Ryan started that when he was like still in high school. This year is actually the 25th anniversary of the record label.
Nice.
So he's had that going for a long time. And actually, when he moved to Savannah, Georgia, from Chicago, he opened a record store. And so actually I got to know him from the record store opening, because there's not much to do where I was living in South Carolina at the time. I would always go to Savannah, and then this record store popped up. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then I just got to know GraveFace Records through that means. And then him and I became friends, and then found out that we had a lot in common.
There you go. And then you guys started collecting crazy things. So what was the first, do you remember the first bit? Because like, to kind of expand here, to give people a picture who haven't watched the video, like in this museum, you guys have a replica of the cell that John Wayne Gacy stayed in before he was while he was on death row. You guys, like you said, you have Charles Manson sweatpants. You have a lobotomy kit from that was used by a doctor who was doing lobotomy, and you have, is it the largest collection of Gacy artwork in the country? It
is actually. It's the largest collection of not just artwork, but also largest collection of Gacy related artifacts in the world. We just have everything. It's kind of insane. Like, and it's funny, we at a point weren't really looking to just keep collecting paintings. It was more so, again, talking to the people that knew Gacy was kind of the way that we went about researching, because we were, we had a lot of questions about the case. Ryan, being from here, had a lot of just questions like, why didn't investigators look at some of the properties Gacy had ties to? Keep in mind, he had a contracting company. So it's like, what happened to those? And did nobody, why did nobody look at to see if there were other victims buried there? And also there were just a lot of rumors. And so it's basically trying to go back in time and connect with some of the people that were watching the crimes unfold or were like very close with Gacy, and basically following the trail to try to, make sense of these different stories and people. And as you get to collecting stories, that does come with physical items sometimes, because these people that we would connect with were, pen pals with Gacy for 10 years. So they have tons of letters, unheard audio recordings, because a lot of people seem to record conversations with Gacy while he was on death row without him knowing it. And so that's been really eye-opening. And so a lot of that, it really started with tracking down pen pals first. And then that progressed to, becoming friends with his younger sister, Karen, actually. So Karen became a very good friend of Ryan and I's through our kind of research and just wanting to know more about the case.
Got it. So pen pals and befriending his sister has kind of been the big way that you've accrued all this John Wayne Gacy stuff.
Yes.
What have you found? Have you found, if any, similarities between every of all the pen pals that used to talk to him?
Honestly, it's pretty diverse, but I know, at least I can speak to the people that were very, very close with him. They all have the kind of similarities of believing that they were John's confidant. Like, they believe that they were the ones that he trusted the most, that he told things to that, he wouldn't tell anybody else. And that is true to some degree. But what happened as a result is it kind of made these inner circle people. There's like 5 or 6 people that Gacy was very close with, who we've tracked down all of those people and now have their living estates, because most of them are still alive. And it's just interesting seeing how he manipulated all of them. It's really, that's the common thread that you see, is he wants something out of all of these pen pals.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Like, he's having, and not just the inner circle, best friend kind of confidants. There's that, and he kind of manipulates them to, believing certain things about him, or believing that they are the trusted individuals and this other person who says they are the most trusted person is not. And it's like pitting people against each other in a really weird way. But as far as the other pen pals go, it's kind of the same tactics where, he was selling artwork on death row. He produced about 2,400 pieces of art while he was in prison.
Wow.
Yeah. He was on death row for 14 and a half years and started painting to finance these legal expenses that he was accruing because he filed 17 appeals in the 14 and a half years he was on death row. And that wasn't free or cheap. So he started selling paintings to sustain his existence. And the way that he ends up, getting so many paintings out in the world, he would recruit these pen pals who he trusted to actually solicit paintings for him. So what he would do is, a guy coming in, like we were friends with one individual, his name is James Sparks. He's like one of the sweetest people ever. And he interviewed Gacy at length because he did his thesis on him for his criminology degree. And so he would visit Gacy. He visited him over 10 times on death row. And at one point, Gacy's like, oh yeah, how are you paying for school? Because you're visiting me every weekend. Like, do you have a job or whatever? And James was like, oh no, I might take a semester off. And at that point, Gacy was like, oh, well, what if I give you some paintings? You've been really kind and like nice and generous with your time to me. I'd like to do you a favor. Take, a stack of my paintings and sell them to friends on your campus. And you can keep a cut of the money, but give me my cut of whatever his flat rate for paintings was. And James, like, he knew what he was doing. He was like, I see, you just want me to sell your paintings for you. But he was like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds fine. And he ends up selling, a good amount of his paintings on campus at the university he was going to. Wow. So that times he had hundreds of pen pals. So it's like he took that approach, not with everybody, but with definitely a good amount of them.
Is there like a high selling painting? Like do you know what it is?
The most popular one is definitely the Pogo the Clown painting, which is the classic one. Acid Bath, the metal band, used that image on their album cover actually. And so a lot of people know it as that, but it's the iconic thing. And he painted over 300 of them. And so it's funny. It's the most painted piece that because he would do the same designs over and over and over again if they were popular. Like he painted a ton of the Charles Manson portraits, like you saw one on display in the museum, and that's definitely the most popular. But the most interesting ones to us are the ones that he did before he really started understanding that people were buying his stuff because it was a morbid novelty. Because early on he's like thinking that he's really good at painting and he's making money because he's so talented.
Yes.
But yeah, it did produce a lot of interesting paintings. A lot of the landscapes that he would copy Bob Ross step-by-steps of, but he also painted a lot of other clowns, like not himself. So I don't know, those are the ones that are interesting to us, but the most popular ones definitely are like Pogo the Clown.
Is there like a super rare one that you guys would love to get your hands on?
Any of the one-offs that, like I mentioned, there's not one in particular. The best things, as far as like collecting goes, and as far as like finding things, the best things are always the items that we don't know exist. So it's like impossible to say. Yeah,
no, that's true. And you say that, and I kind of agree with you just from being at your museum, because what caught my eye was the clown parade. I believe it was like a business card.
Yeah.
Was that what it said, a clown parade?
So that was the Gacy Day Parade, and that was the parade that was hosted. It was like a radio DJ who promoted this whole execution date celebration. And so that was May 10th of 94. And so people were coming out in droves to kind of celebrate Gacy's execution. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is like stuff like that. Like you said, it's not, who knows how many of those are not in the bottom of a landfill at this point.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the thing too, like so much stuff gets thrown out, and that's honestly another reason, like Ryan and I certainly didn't like set out to be collectors. It was more so like we meet this awesome person that has a crazy story and a crazy tie to some really dark part of history, not just related to Gacy, of course. Like, we have met with alien contactees and like people that were in cults at one point or had a family member who was, and they have these relics, and it's like, what are your plans with this? And they're like, it's probably going to go in the garbage when I die. So it's like, God damn it. Like now we feel like we're kind of rescuing these little parts of history that would be thrown out, because it's the people that we get to know typically they're not like in the news. They're not on, they don't have a local celebrity kind of status. They're just people.
Yeah, like you're really following the ball of yarn.
Oh yeah.
To get for sure. Like that's just knowing you guys and you telling me, we're going to Central Illinois to meet so and so because they have a Gacy prop. It's like, wow, like you guys are boots on the ground for this.
Oh yeah.
This isn't just a place you go on a website and you try to make a relationship.
Oh no, exactly.
Which, and I'm sure you get this all the time. So what do you say to people who are like, well, don't you think this is a horrible part of history and it deserves to be in the trash? This is not stuff that deserves to be memorized, memorialized, excuse me.
Right. And I think I see why people say that, but I also see that like at that point with that argument, why would you learn about any part of history? History is not something that's all cheery typically. And I think the most important things to learn from are the things that are the worst and the darkest parts, which is, and it certainly is something that we're still trying to make sense of and explain. Because it's not like serial killers aren't a thing anymore. It's not like people don't go missing every day. And all of these terrible things do happen. And I feel like ignoring it as opposed to being aware of it doesn't really help anybody. And not that learning about serial killers will make you not become a victim to one, because there are plenty of random crimes. But there is definitely something to be said about learning and being aware that people are out there that do these terrible things, and being aware and not forgetting the people that were victimized by these people, because they do typically get kind of lost in the mix, especially when you're dealing with some of these cases and these topics. But definitely they're a factor that's important to remember as well.
Yeah, and listen, and I don't know, because I'm in your boat. It's something that I'm interested in myself. Like that's why I had you in, because and clearly like true crime is one of the biggest genres, and people are just fascinated by it for some reason, And I don't know if you could really explain like why.
Yeah.
Or do you have like a reason why?
Well, actually, and so earlier this month, a book came out called Morbidly Curious, and the subtext is a scientist explains our morbid curiosity and why we can't look away. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And so reading that, I'm like, oh yeah, it actually makes sense from a scientific standpoint why humans are interested in learning about these terrible things in the minds of dangerous people. Yeah. It does come from kind of that standpoint. But for me, personally, it's definitely like, what happened? Like what caused this, and why this person, like for example, like Jeffrey Dahmer, it's like, okay, you can look at his life. He was pretty forthcoming about what his experience was like in childhood and his upbringing. And there are definitely signs of neglect and emotional abuse, and even like, him being unable to cope with certain things, and definitely some mental illness in there. But it's like his life experience wasn't so extreme that you could say, oh, that makes total sense why he killed and ate people. It's like, that is a very extreme reaction. So it's like, that's something that's worth looking into. Yeah. Because there are plenty of people that have really horrible, traumatic, awful upbringings and go through horrible abuse that don't do that. So it's like, what is that difference? Because you can't just say it's environment and you can't just say it's biology. So it's definitely worth trying to understand more about just the human mind to try to make sense of it.
What drives these people to kind of do this?
Yeah, and it's something that I don't know that we could ever answer, but it's something that we should still try to be looking into. Yeah,
worth exploring.
Absolutely.
For sure. Back to Gacy. I think one of the big things that I learned as well from you when I went on the tour last week was how good of a businessman he was. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you just said he just conned but he kind of got his pen pal to kind of do his business for him. But the fact that his construction company, or contracting company, whatever it's called, was making a couple million a year. Is that right?
It was over $1 million the year that he was arrested in '78, which is a lot, and that's net. That's gross. All that's gross. That's not all that's coming in. That's not paying employees and so on, which he had over 60 employees. And so we've been able to gain a lot of insight, because one of the main things that we knew that we needed to find as far as acquiring things goes, there were a few things on our checklist, like in talking to all these pen pals, especially when we started this process really early on, where like if somebody could find Gacy's business records, that would tell us a lot. And so that was something on our like top of the list of things that we would ask every single person that we met with, and especially people like Karen. We were really hoping that his sister actually ended up with all of his business records. And she wasn't very public about, sharing what she had and so on. She did a few interviews, but we, got to know her quite well. And she was like, I don't have those. But in interviewing her, we have been working on this long form documentary series about the Gacy case and about our research in it, kind of looking into the underbelly of the case, and kind of all the unanswered questions. And we were filming for that a few years ago. And we reached out to, on a whim, one of the people that we couldn't get a hold of, who may have his business records. Like, we weren't sure if he had them or not. And he didn't respond to us, but he responded to Karen, because he remembered her from this whole case happening, obviously. And he's like, I don't know if I have what you need, but you can come by my house and see. And sure enough, we go to his house and he opens the garage and all of the PDM records are there.
Wow.
And so that was like that I was in shock for for a while after finding those. It's like, oh my God, we've been looking for these for so long. And not just us, but other people too, who have been interested in learning more about the case, because those business records were the ones that were used by his appellate team in the very final appeal in 94, it was like super, super close to the execution. It was right up to the very end. They were filing this final appeal, and they went through those documents and they found there were some discrepancies in timelines of when victims went missing versus when Gacy was actually in the state of Illinois. And so that was something that raised an eyebrow for them. And they were like, this should be looked into before we proceed with the execution. Because if there are, 6 people perhaps that weren't actually killed by Gacy, or if there's or if maybe there's somebody else who's involved who's making it so that this is possible for him to actually kill these people. Either way you slice it, there's 6 discrepancies. So they thought that was worth looking into, and the judge disagreed. So execution proceeded. And again, overall, it's a satisfactory conclusion, but it's just left us with so many questions. So.
Yeah, because I think you've said it, like, there's no denying he
he's
a monster and he did all this stuff. He deserved to,
Right. No, he deserved to die in prison.
Yeah.
There was no question about that. And he was very much guilty. And in fact, in doing what we've been doing and looking into all of the avenues that we've been exploring, we believe that he killed a lot more than 33 people. I mean, the simple fact that there were, he confessed to his attorneys. And we have these interview tapes of him actually confessing to up to 3 more murders to them, just in that one little instance. And none of those locations that he names are buildings, which is crazy. And it's like, and the buildings that he worked on or had keys to weren't looked at either. Not to mention, he travels constantly. He travels all over the US doing contract work. So it kind of defies logic to think that he was just a homebody who liked to kill in his house. And that was the driving point of the murders, was just like being at home. Because that just doesn't really check out. Like, he committed other crimes in other places. Certainly when he was in Waterloo, Iowa, he committed crimes.
Yeah.
And he also dumped 5 victims in the Des Plaines River, but only 4 of them were found. And now it's still like, okay, there's at least 1 victim out there that he admitted to, and nothing came of that. It's like, nobody looked into it. We're not really talking about it even. So it's like, there's just so many questions, but we do think that he's way more guilty than just 33 victims, which is a ton.
Do you have any type of ballpark of how many you think it is?
So Ryan thinks it's like over 100.
Really?
Yeah. I'm being optimistic and thinking that it's probably like between 50 and 60, but I honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it were more, especially if you're considering, well, if there were people that were, his handyman. Like, there's 2 guys who dug all the holes under his house, right? Their names were David Cram and Michael Rossi, and they were looked into as accomplices, but then the state decided to use them as witnesses. So they, weren't really questioned further, but they were digging holes under his house while they were living with him. They had keys to the property. They worked for his contracting company. They were with him all the time. And it's kind of hard to believe that they didn't know something was going on. And on top of those 2 guys, we've been looking into some other folks who were very, very suspicious, that could have very well had a hand in this the crimes that Gacy was doing. But again, whether or not they did or didn't, it's just something worth exploring.
Yeah. Are those guys still alive?
Some of them are, a lot of them aren't.
Yeah.
Like David Cram committed suicide in the early 2000s, so he's no longer with us. But we've found some really just, again, compelling things pointing to other people certainly knew what he was doing. There's no question about that. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, it's just whether or not those people also were, did they have a hand in the crimes, or did they help him get away with the crimes, or were they, helping him procure victims? Like, again, there's so many possibilities, and that's kind of the problem with this case, because the way it's talked about in most documentaries and most people that are very familiar with the case, it's as though the case is very much complete. It's like what went to trial is the end all be all, and we're all good. We have all the answers except for 5 victims, which we still have unidentified. But other than that, most people are pretty satisfied with what went to trial. But it's like, there's just so much more to it.
And that's what you and your husband Ryan are doing, is you guys are kind of telling, like, hey, this was never
right. It wasn't complete to begin with. Yeah.
Because we don't got to get into the nitty gritty. I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah.
Because you've told me some stuff that I know, you don't want to totally get into, but
right.
Like this may go pretty deep.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes, pretty deep. And the difference of, I think, Ryan's approach to researching, again, because he just acquires stuff, and we don't like speculating, like, as much as, again, I might be talking a little bit vague, but like, we don't like speculating and theorizing. We like just finding a tangible thing and following a paper trail, because those things are typically objective and can't be refuted. So if it's documentation we can find, that's the kind of stuff we're typically looking for at this point, that, puts a time and place to this person. And we can actually then go back and kind of retrace steps and actually see, oh, this is something worth noting. But it's definitely, it goes pretty deep.
Yeah. And deep to the point where, like, there might be some powerful people involved.
Yeah.
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 All right. Well, when is this coming out?
So on our website, I actually made like a little, like a box that you can put in an email, because we actually don't know exactly when it's coming out or where it will be found, because we were going to do kind of a self-releasing thing, which we probably still are, but there was some interest with a production company, actually a couple of them, that didn't really end up going anywhere. It just kind of was like spinning wheels, and a lot of things, they were requesting we change. And it's like, well, it's kind of defeating the entire purpose if we go back and we don't address this, or we don't talk about this, because it's too sensitive or too icky.
Yeah.
But so we're back to kind of, over the winter, I think we're going to be just trying to finish the first part of what we have. But I have a little update page on our website. So that's,
just keep an eye out there.
That's probably the best way.
Yeah. Is there a piece that you guys have in your museum, whether it be in Savannah or Chicago, that you're like, holy shit, how did we get this?
There's a few things. One in particular is actually a shovel that came from his property.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that Savannah? Because I didn't see
it is
that.
Savannah.
Okay, I didn't
see that. It's hard. Like, it's really icky, because it was actually taken from the house during the investigation by one of the detectives. And I don't know why he kept it, but he did. And it's on display in our museum, but you can see the PDM stamp on the actual shovel part of it. But he said that the location he found it in was the front room where the crawl space was located.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the piece that I'm like, I try to not, like, I don't know. It gives me the, like, it gives me the creeps for sure. But I'm just shocked that it exists. And that's another thing that it's like, I didn't know that. You don't think about that, but somebody found it in his house and kept it, and now it's with us. And it's just mind blowing. But yeah, the shovel is notably short. So not saying it definitively was in the crawl space, but it certainly could have been.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just a detective. You're like, hey.
Well, we actually started interviewing him. We didn't know that he had anything. We just wanted to talk to him about his experience. He's, and he was gracious to let us interview him and come into his house, and he's awesome. But yeah, and the second time that we visited with him and his wife, she was like, "Oh yeah, get him the thing," and we're like, "What's the thing?" And then he comes out with this shovel wrapped in a garbage bag, and we're like, what? And he showed the PDM thing and explained where, like, how he found it and where it was in the house, and we're like, oh my God, why do you have this? And then anyways, so he sent us on our way with it, and yeah.
That's that.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you guys were close to acquiring that it just didn't work out, but you were
Honestly, no. We've been pretty successful with actually getting a hold of all of the things that we want to get a hold of, at least. And I think people are typically receptive of the fact that we're not buying this stuff or acquiring this stuff to then just flip it. Like it will live with us until we're dead. Like, it's not anything that we, want to flip or anything. We have the museum. And so I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that their collection will kind of continue on and stay in one unit as opposed to getting divvied up. And especially since we've been working on this documentary, it's been helpful, I think, for people to know, like, oh, their stuff and their information is going towards something that's positive. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be on eBay.
Right, yeah.
Right after. Or anything
exactly.
Like that. Is there anything, or is there any person in particular that is almost impossible to, gather stuff from, like a crew?
As far as like any...
Yeah, like whether it be a letter or,
yeah.
a piece of clothing, whatever.
One person is very difficult, which is Ed Kemper. He's the co-ed killer who terrorized the Santa Cruz area in the 70s, and he just doesn't communicate with anybody. So there's very little of him out there. But one thing that we ended up with that I was totally shocked about, because I didn't assume that there was anything out there of this criminal, was the Ed Gein stuff that we have. So in Savannah, we actually have a whole dedicated two-floor house built inside the museum, and it is filled with original artifacts actually from the case. So we ended up with that actually through looking into the Gacy case. We weren't searching for Ed Gein, but we ended up connecting with this guy who we knew back in the 80s or 90s that he at one point owned at least a Gacy painting or two. And so Ryan finds him, tracks him down, and calls him and is like, hey, I saw that you used to communicate with Gacy. Do you still have any of the paintings that you bought back then? And that guy was like, no, but do you know who Ed Gein is? Because I have the holy grail of Gein stuff. And we're like, what could that be? Because we knew that all of the evidence was destroyed after the case. We knew that it's so old that not many people have stuff. And Gein he wasn't commodifying himself like Gacy was. Like, there's a few like postcards and like greeting cards that he sent out from Mendota, which was the mental hospital he was at. But we're like, what could he possibly have? But it turns out this guy worked directly under the lead investigator, the lead polygraph expert from the Gein case. So that guy's name was Joe Wilimowski. He and his brother Alan Wilimowski actually both worked the Ed Gein case in 57 and conducted all of the interviews with him. Alan was a ballistics expert. So we ended up with their entire estates because this, friend of the family, it was passed on to, which is just crazy that it exists. But at this point, I think one of the most insane things that we have in our possession is the only known piece of evidence left to exist from the case.
Wow.
It is, it's a lock of a woman's hair with it's like a little bullet casing and a little like name tag that says Ed Gein, Plainfield, Wisconsin, just like an identifying keychain on like a beaded, metal thing. But the woman's hair has scalp attached to it. So it was definitely taken from somebody post-mortem.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's probably the most insane thing that we didn't know that it existed.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. And then in the interviews that Joe is conducting with Ed Gein, he actually asks him twice about the hair. He's like, do you remember the hair that my brother Alan got from you? Do you know who that is? And so on. And Gein doesn't give any straight answers. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, he asked him about it twice and didn't really get anywhere with that, but it exists and he kept it for whatever reason. Again, these interesting detectives tend to keep these little trophies of cases they work, I notice. Yeah.
Wow. That is,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And especially now, like that's so prevalent now with the new Netflix thing. So,
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are going to be interested in that for sure.
Definitely, yeah.
Is there someone that you guys just haven't had enough time to really explore on that like is kind of like maybe next in the pipeline here?
I mean, honestly, we fell into looking into the Gacy stuff so organically. I don't know that we're thinking of things that way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like we didn't set out like, okay, what are we going to do? We're going to research the Gacy case at length. And, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know how to answer that. I think until the end of time, Ryan's going to be like delving into the Gacy case. He learns something new almost every day, which is alarming with a case that's technically solved and decades old. But again, proof that it should be looked into further. I mean, for me personally, I'm very interested in like, there's a lot of underbelly to the Manson family case. I don't know if you read that book Chaos before.
I did not. No.
Or hear of it.
I haven't really. It sounds familiar. Yes.
All right. The full title is Charles Manson, or full title's Chaos: Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. It came out in 2019. It was written by a journalist, investigative author named Tom O'Neill, and he wrote that book. And it sounds so insane when you like read the title. You're like, oh, this seems like some conspiracy BS, but it's so information dense and really, really well researched, and it's very interesting. So I'm more personally fascinated with like the underbelly of like the weird MK Ultra government testing stuff, because that stuff is so ambiguous, but it reaches into some very interesting corners of popular history and culture. And I don't know, it seems like a never-ending rabbit hole. So that's just something that's personally fascinating to me. I mean, I'm going to leave it to that journalist to kind of, handle that investigation as far as that goes. But I'm very interested to see what else he comes up with, because I know he's working on part 2 to that book.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the MK Ultra stuff is, him, Ted Kaczynski, like there's the amount of people that were possibly involved with that was pretty nuts.
It's pretty astounding, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody within like the last decade or two has like particularly caught your interest where...
Not in particular, no. No, I don't know. I don't think I think that way, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean,
you just kind of organically stumble upon these things that you're like, oh, I'm curious about this. I think what drives us is just genuine curiosity. And so there's a lot of, there's just a lot of questions about especially these older cases that is left uninvestigated, because of course we didn't have the same resources that we do now. So I think there's definitely more interest in like the Gacy case and the things that happened back then and the things that were never spoken of in like the Manson family, or even the Jonestown case. Like I'm very fascinated by cults specifically. That's something that's very, I don't know, that's kind of my thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it touches on so many different facets in like human psychology.
Yeah, no, it does. And I think that's not to say you won't hear something about someone tomorrow and be like, oh, I'm interested in that now.
Right.
So it's like ever
Oh, exactly. Sure. Yeah, totally.
What about as far as, and also I should note too, I know I did an episode on Gacy, just kind of laying out the basics. I think it was in like 2020. And then obviously I've re-aired my interview that I've done with Sam Amarante, who was his lawyer.
Yeah.
I think like a couple weeks ago we re-aired that.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
Yeah, I know people have heard that. So apologies if we're going too in the weeds without laying it out, but I feel like people, there's episodes where people can catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about I've always been kind of fascinated about the house that he had, like an extra house on like Austin Myrtle or something. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think, are you talking about the Miami Avenue in Elston?
Yes, Miami Avenue in Elston. That's
yes. So that was actually his mother's condo. It was a whole condo building, and he property managed for it. It started out with him. It was one of the first contracting jobs that PDM actually took on. Because basically when Gacy was paroled, so going back a little bit to the 60s, he was arrested for sexually assaulting a teenage boy in Waterloo, Iowa in 1968. and he was sentenced to 10 years. He got out within 18 months because he was really well behaved and saw demonstrated good signs of reform. So he was paroled back to Chicago. Like, the conditions of his parole were like, you have to live with your mother, you have to go back to Chicago, and you have to abide by a curfew, and you have to have a job. And so he, goes back to Chicago. Him and his mother move into this house, the Summerdale property where the crimes later took place. And eventually, because he married a second time, that second wife had 2 kids. And so it's Gacy's mom, Gacy, and, his second wife and 2 kids. And then his wife moves in her mother. And so Marion Gacy, the mother, was like, this is too crowded for me now. So she moved out. And so Gacy's sidebar was violating his parole from very, very early on. But nobody really followed up, which is, kind of the time. But anyway, so she moved to Miami Avenue in Elston. And that property, I know that it's suspect to people thinking maybe there are victims buried there. I know there's a few people out there that really are like dead set on that. I personally, just going by that property and seeing the layout, it's a really tiny corner lot. It looks like, it's the shape of a pizza. It's a very just narrow, and it's very out in the open. And is it possible that victims could be there too? Anything's possible, but it is, I would say, the kind of less likely compared to some of the things that we've found in looking through Gacy's business records, where there's like an address and Gacy admitting in a different document to bringing underage boys there to do horrible things, because he would hang out in the districts primarily and would bring back these underage hustlers to different properties that he managed. One of them was this
What's a hustling district?
Like a sex work district,
Okay,
but specifically underage boys would hang out in this like gay hustling district. Back in the 70s, it was kind of a common thing for certain areas in the city, which is very unfortunate, and that's a whole nother tangent. But there's one property in particular that caught our interest because Gacy actually admits to bringing an underage boy there, and then doing some research on that property, we find out that there was a police report filed on it, and somebody who was doing work on that property said that it smelled like dead bodies. That was in 1972.
Whoa.
The crimes technically started in 1972. He wasn't caught until 78, keep in mind. So there could be, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, there's, the Miami Avenue stuff is very it's not super compelling compared to somebody saying it smells like a dead body and Gacy saying I've brought underage boys here before.
Yeah, that's
a whole different ball game for sure. And that's some of the stuff that we're expanding on in the documentary that we're working on, is going to that property, and now we're actually actively trying to track down who owns that property currently and move forward with something.
Is that a location that's been released yet or no? No, so only you guys know. All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. It's more so his mom lived there, so
his mom lived there
under the assumption that something happened. Has there been any contact with his kids and wife?
Actually, we spoke with his second wife. We met with her. She's awesome, honestly. She was really, really pleasant to talk to. She was best friends with Karen. So Karen, Gacy's sister, is the one who introduced us, and we got lunch with the 2 of them, and it was great. They both said very interesting things about Gacy's kind of mind, I guess, because all their lives were like, how could this person do this? I knew him so well, and he was so kind and so generous and loving and just a good guy. And that's what kind of blindsided everybody that knew him, was he seemed so normal and so, just good. And then both of them mentioned in kind of analyzing things now decades later as they're older and can kind of look at this more objectively without getting emotionally distressed. They were like, he must have had some sort of split in his personality. They couldn't really make sense of it. Now, I think there's something to be said about that, because his father had a history of mental illness as well. He was actually discharged from the military for having a psychotic break. The family didn't know about that until after the dad's passing. And he suffered a second psychotic break that put him in a psychiatric facility back when Gacy was 6 and Karen was really young. So there's a history there, and even the kids, Karen and John, as young kids, when the dad would drink, they would call him Jekyll and Hyde because he was so vastly different. So I don't know, there's something to that. I don't know if it's like a traditional like split personality, but there's maybe something to that. I mean, it's what they experience, and I certainly wasn't there. So that's, I don't know, just an interesting insight.
For sure. Yeah. But his kids and first wife are completely anonymous. Yeah. Nobody really knows.
Well, through Karen, because Karen talked to and kept up with the biological kids. But I don't know, we just didn't really find a reason to go bothering them yet. So we haven't. It's, I don't know. I don't know that they would have much to say because they were
so young,
very, very, very young. Yeah, they were babies basically when he was arrested the first time. So we would love to talk to his first wife though, because we do have some we have questions for her.
Yeah. Yeah. But she hasn't talked to anyone. Right?
No, she's pretty elusive. So
yeah,
we would love to talk to her because I don't know. We just have some questions about things that were going on in Waterloo back in the 60s. So
yeah, because they're not even in the area anymore, right?
Actually, I think they are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing because, well, I guess that's my question too, is you say like he was traveling and you think there was more outside of there, but his whole thing was he would bring them back and he kind of had his whole setup. Like, I guess you could do that at like a motel or something too.
Yeah.
But
is that really his thing? Because that's what we know about the crimes.
Yeah.
But nobody looked into any other properties. So, if that's something, and again, the prosecutor, I know he created this whole kind of like psychological profile of like Gacy was a homebody and he liked being physically over his bodies and the victims, and he could feel like he was in control over them. But it's like, well, then why did he dump 4 victims in the river? Because the kind of answer to that historically has been he ran out of space, but he didn't. If you look at the map of the crawl space and where victims were actually buried, and he was burying victims on top of victims, so he actually had plenty of space to work with still. I think some circumstances, and typically serial killers get caught because they get careless. They don't ever like overtly, it's kind of a misnomer that they want to be caught and they want this to come to an end. It's like, no, they think that they're literally smarter than every single person on earth, and they think that they'll get away with it because they have. So they get more brazen and more bold. And so Gacy throws the last 4 victims into the Des Plaines River. Technically there's 5 again, but we don't know who the 5th was. There was never a body that was recovered. So at least 4 victims. But again, the crimes and the investigation of the crimes kind of stopped at the house and the Des Plaines River. Nobody looked into other properties to corroborate whether or not that's accurate, in that he did just kill at his house and just bring bodies back to his house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When's the last victim who was identified? It was like within the last 5 years?
Yeah, that was Francis Wayne Alexander. I think he was identified in 2019 or 2021. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then one was identified in 2017.
Is that like a 23andMe thing, or because I know that's obviously solving a lot of these things?
Yeah, no, it is DNA testing, and I know the Cook County is handling that basically, and so they identified 3 of the 8 unidentified victims, because right until like 1994 there were still 8 unidentified victims, and since then, and since DNA testing has gotten better, we've now identified another 3, and now that leaves us with 5 who still don't have names. And that's another question that, I don't know, we've been trying to raise with the specifically Cook County sheriffs, which is like, hey, because there's a website, you can put in an email and be like, and request to be contacted to get your DNA swabbed. If you have a loved one that went missing between this era and this era, they're a male that fits this kind of profile, get in touch and they'll swab for DNA and try to put it in the database. But we've talked to several families that have come up in our research that were like, have you thought about this? Or sometimes they even approach us and they're like, hey, has my loved one's name ever come up in your research? Because I know what you're working on. And we're like, actually, yeah. Have you gotten in touch with Cook County yet? And they're like, yes, like 5 times, and they won't write us back.
Really?
Yeah. And it's like, what's that all about? Like, are they just busy? Like, I know that it's a closed case. I know that Gacy's dead, but it still doesn't make it so that, it doesn't make it right to not respond to some of these people that might very well have a victim that was a Gacy victim. And they have his remains and they're sitting right there, but nobody's like connecting the links to actually test these people. So it's curious. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but it's something that we've even personally reached out to Detective Moran, who's in charge of that, and he also just doesn't respond to us. We're like, hey, we're talking to this person, like they really want to be tested, and like there's really like we have some very compelling research on this one person who might be a Gacy victim. Have you looked into this? And it's like they're just, it's silence. So I don't know what that's all about. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're,
it's frustrating, but
no, because if you're offering the service, it's
right.
like,
yeah, take us up.
Yeah, exactly. If you could ask and get the answer to one question from him, an honest answer as well, I should say, what's your question?
Oh man, that is a really good question. There's so many. So like, I don't know. I think right off
you
the
do a couple.
Yeah.
But tier them. Give me number
tier
one.
Them. Okay. I think the first would be, how many victims are there? Like, if I could get a truthful answer, how many victims are there? And then the follow-up to that would be, where are they? That would be the top two. And those are questions that I would personally love to know the answer to. And again, it was really something that could never be known because he was a big fat liar.
Yeah.
But also he's dead, so you can't ask him. But.
Yeah. And like I said, he would have to answer truthfully.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That's a good one. I think those are the top two of the list.
Top ones.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting. So oddly enough, I was on YouTube and like a short popped up, and he was looking at like victims or something. He's like, I've never seen any of these people.
Yeah.
So is that him lying, or was that him actually like there's some?
I think that's the Walter Jacobson interview. I'm pretty sure. And so that was something that aired on TV, of course. And so when he's on TV and in any public eye, he is trying to make himself look as not guilty as possible. And so I think, and you have to really break down how Gacy talks and like kind of understand his lingo to kind of wrap your head around what he's saying, because he does talk around things a lot. So when he's saying like, I don't even know who some of these victims are, like that doesn't really matter, like because they're under your house. And so it's like him saying I don't remember doing this is basically him saying I could have been in a drug and alcohol induced like psychosis of some sort, or blacked out, not remembered who they are. Because there are some victims that he's claiming like, that he did kill. And those are victims that he knew personally. Like one of them is John Bukovich, who was a employee of his. I mean, there were several employees that were victims. But yeah, it's like, just because you know a victim doesn't mean, or don't know a victim doesn't mean you didn't kill them. Yeah. But again, that's him trying to divert the attention, because now you're trying to gather what he means by that. And so it's left to somebody's interpretation, as opposed to him just saying, kind of shirking it off as like, I don't even know these people. Now, in that context, I know he was also trying to say that he couldn't have been the only one who was killing all these people, because he wasn't even in town for some of them. And so that's annoying, because some of the things that he's saying, there's like a kernel of truth to. Because it's like, yeah, he was traveling a lot, and okay, actually there are some discrepancies like we noticed. And again, and the difference that we have is like we can look at these documents that the attorneys were looking at, and we can actually see, oh damn, there were actually discrepancies. And when he's in town and when a victim is killed and buried under his house as attributed by the prosecution, and Gacy's out of town for 2 weeks in another state. So it's like that is weird. And so it's like, I don't know what to make of that exactly, unless you kind of go back and analyze each victim individually. But yeah, he has his own kind of like language, honestly.
But by and large, it's kind of your belief that he did not act alone.
I personally don't think he acted alone. Just with what we've seen and what we've been able to kind of dig up, it's way more compelling than, him doing all this himself and getting away with this without anybody knowing. Now, I do think there's something to be said about him grooming other people, because he was very much at the forefront and center of his crimes. He was obsessed with control. And so that is something that you see in sexual deviants and predators, which he very much was. Kind of first and foremost, before he was a serial killer, he was a sexual deviant and predator. And so that checks And you can see that dynamic form in some of the victims and some of the people that he employed, like Cram and Rossi. Like, to me, it makes sense, and you kind of have to go with, you know, what you can see, what you can prove, and then what's also logical to kind of make sense of this without any of these people being alive. But it makes sense that, you know, if he implicates somebody else in his crimes, if he involves Rossi or Cram, hey, you're going to dig these holes. Oh, now you're going to help me bury a body. Oh, it's a good thing you're not going to go to the police because you're going to go down for these crimes too. Like, he can hold that over somebody's head. And that makes so much sense with him, like, personality-wise. But how many people did he do that to? I mean, I'm just giving David Cram and Michael Rossi because those two guys are very much talked about. They're all throughout the trial transcripts. They're actually mentioned in some of the documentaries and so on. So there's just like who people first go to when talking about accomplices, or the idea that there were accomplices. But it's not just, it doesn't stop at them. I'll just mention that.
I mean, he had a power dynamic over almost every one of these victims.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
So.
Yeah. No, that's definitely, again, it's, you kind of have to look at the thing holistically, I guess.
What do you think Ryan's answer would be to my question about what's one thing he'd want answered?
Oh man, I feel like it would change day to day. Like, honestly, I mean, he would probably have a very good answer. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know that he is also very much like, kind of what drives this and why we keep doing this is to hopefully find some finality and closure for somebody that doesn't have it. Like, that's the goal. Even if it's just one person, if it's not like, doesn't have to be a lot. Like, if it's one person that like we can make something make sense for, that would be incredible.
To his loved ones or people that were close to him or people that you've talked to that have been connected here, believe what you believe?
Generally, yes.
Yeah. So they think there's more to this thing.
Yeah. That's the common belief with most people who were very close to the case or who knew it well or knew Gacy well. But then on the flip side, you have the people that are, you know, that stick to the trial, stick to what went to trial, because that, you know, you can't be sued for, you know, saying something if it went to trial. But no, I mean, I think a lot of people stick to the easy to digest version of the case because that is the easiest way to go. And it does take a lot of, again, research and digging. I mean, again, we've been doing this, well, Ryan's been doing it for like 12 years and myself for like 9 to 10, just looking into things further. And I think that unless you kind of put your hands on and really like are motivated to try to find answers, I don't know that it's just hard to see where all the strings lead without actually like getting really knee deep into it. So maybe that's why a lot of people kind of stick to what they know.
Mm-hmm. And I should note too, not to be all vague and, you know, follow the tea leaves and the cookie crumb guy, but, you know, you guys are also in possession of, far and away, it's going to be the biggest Gacy artifact ever that you guys haven't released yet. But do you have any plans to let that out there yet? Or
we've thought about it, but we don't have anything definitive yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we've been trying to think about how and where and what.
Yeah, just keep an eye out because my mind was fucking blown when I heard that had this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But Chloe, thank you for coming in. Is there anything we didn't get to that you think we should get into?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
We did cover a lot of ground. Yeah. No, and I guess one thing to note, the museum doesn't just have Gacy stuff, true crime stuff. It's more dynamic than that, I guess. Especially in the Savannah Museum, like we get into a lot of like sideshow history, which I guess we get into here as well, and like just like roadside attractions, kind of, I don't know, it's just weird, obscure parts of history that nobody talks about, I guess is a good way to put it. And serial killers fit into that.
Yeah, and I think that's, like you said, you get into the freak show stuff, there's some satanic stuff, and even if you're familiar, like, because I don't know, this is all stuff that I've been kind of tangled into. You had some G.G. Allen stuff, which we got into, which if you're familiar with him, quite the guy for sure.
He's something.
Yeah. He really is.
Oh, we actually in Savannah, which I'll see how we can try to send it to you, but we have a piece that Gacy painted of G.G. Allen that's never been seen prior to this year. It was painted for his best friend Sharon Rose. That's Gigi's best friend, and after Gigi passed away, Gacy produced this painting for Sharon, and it's awesome. It's so insane. But the condition of her letting it get out into, other people's hands, like her husband didn't even see it.
Wow.
It was really just her and Gacy that saw this from 1993 until now. Wow. But yeah, we have that on display, but it's like encased into the wall because her condition was that nobody is to photograph it. So, so yeah, I don't know how we'll get you to see it, but there's.
I guess I gotta go to Savannah then.
Gotta just go to Savannah.
Yeah, that's it. I have to go to Savannah.
It's vacation time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right then. So people can go check out the museum. When, address, everything, website.
Yeah. So we're at so gravefacemuseum.com is where you can kind of get more information too about like the exhibits that we have and what's going on. For both locations, you can kind of choose your location. And we have a location in Savannah, Georgia, which is on, it's downtown in the historic district. And then the location here is in Bucktown, the Wicker Park kind of area, but it's 1829 Milwaukee Avenue.
Okay.
Yeah.
1829. And then what is the Instagram? You guys got a good Instagram too.
Yeah, it's the general museum one is GraveFace_museum. Mm-hmm. And the one that's specific to this location is GraveFace_Chicago.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chloe, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
If you haven't watched it yet, obviously go watch the video that I dropped last Friday on YouTube. Chloe's in it. And we see a little bit of the museum. It's not going to be the full tour, so you should definitely go see it because I want to go back myself because there's so many little artifacts on the wall that I didn't get to read just because, we were shooting a video and we're not going to put a 60-minute tour on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
There's a lot there, though.
Yeah. And then also thank you to Hard Factor Pat. He's the one who introduced me to you guys. So appreciate Pat. And thanks again, Chloe.
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you.
All right, that's it, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. That's it for this week. We will catch you guys on Tuesday.